Just a reminder to everybody listening, the views expressed, especially in this presentation, are the presenters and the presenters only and definitely do not represent the views, opinions, or strategies of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association.
Wow, welcome back for a midweek bonus. What a doozy this is. We're just going to get straight to it tonight. The MOU that was released today. Take it away, James.
So this MOU is about the route adjustments that they've been prescribing to all these carriers that have been on overburdened routes, putting all these overburdened routes uh, boxes onto aux routes. So this MOU is a territorial route adjustment system, and it says the United States Postal Service and the National Rural Letter Carriers Association agree to the following procedure for all rural routes receiving territorial adjustments, including adjustments to relieve overburdened routes, consolidations of one or more routes in an office, and creation of new routes. This agreement does not extend to routes receiving interim adjustments related to new growth, loss of delivery points, or route realignments and remeasurements. When territorial adjustments are completed in an office, all impacted routes, regardless of the amount of the adjustment, will have the route evaluation set to the standard hours and minutes as they are finalized on the Rural Route Evaluated Compensation System Interim Route Adjustment Worksheet. Once the territorial route adjustment has been implemented, the route evaluation will remain what is finalized on the REX Interim Adjustment Worksheet until such time that at least 52 weeks have passed. The route will then be evaluated using the volume data collection period and the mini-mail survey associated with either the April or October effective date as appropriate. Base hour changes may be made to the evaluations finalized on the REX interim adjustment worksheet as needed. However, a route evaluation reset will only occur as outlined above. All rural routes impacted by territorial route adjustments completed in 2024 prior to the October evaluation will be reset to the standard hours and minutes finalized in the REX interim adjustment worksheet effective retroactively to October 19th, 2024. Territorial route adjustments completed after the October evaluation effective date will follow the procedures outlined in this MOU for any future route evaluations. The rural route evaluations implemented on October 5 will be superseded by this retroactive base hour change for all rural routes that received territorial route adjustments in 2024 prior to October. For those routes where the actual standard hours increase and consequently the route classification changes to one with more relief days, the assigned carriers will be compensated for the difference in evaluated hours or relief days in accordance with the parties' pre-arbitration decision regarding retroactive route adjustments. Conversely, those rural routes which receive a retroactive base hour change reducing the evaluated hours will be issued corresponding accounts receivable note invoices. The provisions set forth in the MOU do not restrict the parties from negotiating changes to this procedure should opportunities arise based on future advancements in technology. Signed, Donald L. Maston, President, NRLCA, and Kathy M. Perrin, Director of Contract Administration for USPS with the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. The person who signed this with Don Maston is the very person who is negotiating our next contract with him. Now, before we get into our opinions on this, from what I've read in here, I'm going to kind of explain what's going on. Then we can get into the meat and potatoes of what we think of this heap of garbage. The territorial route adjustments, which are cutting routes from the 48K overburden status to the 43, are going to be locked in that 43K status until they get a 52-week data set to be able to use REX properly on these routes. This is retroactive to when they first started cutting routes. So according to this, if your route was cut and then your route was reevaluated back to 48K, you're going to be put back to that 43K and charged by the Postal Service for the money you were paid. Conversely, for those carriers who had aux routes that had the overburdened portions put on their routes, then became full routes, that evaluation will be that full route evaluation as it was when they placed those boxes on that aux route. to make it a whole route. That is the only benefit here, is that the carriers who went onto an aux route that was evaluated above the 42 standard hours when they did the cuts and adds will be paid at the rate that it was evaluated at when they made the cuts. Conversely, the carriers who were overburdened, got their routes cut to 43K, and then went back to 48K are going to lose a crap ton of money right around Christmas. Now, people are asking, what if I'm still having growth on here? This does not affect the interim adjustments as you do your LTM mapping every month. So if you're adding boxes to your route, you're going to turn around and you're going to still get those interim adjustments, and then that will be your new evaluation. So there is questions on that, but I wanted to let you know the interim adjustment process still will be effective. So those of you who are scared that you're going to be stuck at 43 when you're having growth on your route will still get adjusted. On the other side of it, I could see it being held for a year, and then because of those interim adjustments, you go right back to that 48K mark again, and they see that on the evaluation and immediately cut you again to 43 right after that first year. But before I go off, I'll let Kristen go first.
Also, since the most recent mini mail survey, if your route has been adjusted, cut after that happened, you'll be locked into that 52 weeks. So you won't. You'll have to get a full 52 weeks before your route will change. So any of them going on in the future will be locked in for a full 52 weeks. Just to make sure, add that in there too, so it's clear. But yeah, here's the thing. They saw this coming. They saw, because didn't they tell us when questions were asked at boosters and conventions and conferences that what's going to happen with these routes that have been cut due to overburden status with the next mini mail survey? And I do believe the responses were going to be they'll probably go back up. So why wasn't something like this ensued prior to the most recent mini mail survey? And now, before Christmas, you're going to send out letter of demands and screw those carriers over. Honestly, if you're going to do this after the most recent mini mail survey, put the 52-week hold in effect and make it a wash on those carriers that were overpaid and make it right with those carriers that are being underpaid. That's all I have for the moment.
Bill?
When this alert came up on my phone, I was trying to read it on my phone, and I said, okay, I got to print a hard copy off because I couldn't follow the language correctly. And the more I kept reading it, my mind just kept going down to issued corresponding accounts receivable invoices. So you're going to have to pay money back. How many of us have got paid for being over 57.36 for the last 6 years? How many of us have gotten paid for all the extra work we've done that Rex we were supposed to pay for what we do? And now they keep chipping away, like with the COA labels, the parts labels, COAs, the second trips for hampers and this and that. And it just sat there and said, you're kidding me. I said, because the first thing I thought of was the 52-week data collection was one of the topics we discussed earlier in our podcast history in regards to being fair when you make adjustments because of the volume factors, your drive time speed, and other factors when you take on other parts of different routes when they were squaring them up or when they were basically cutting them. And we talked about this, said, if you're going to do this, then you need a full 52 weeks evaluation data in there to make it fair. And here it is. Wow, they stole another idea off the United We Scan podcast. But to turn around and say that you're going to send out account receivable invoices to the carriers who've been slaving away for 6 years, I don't know what constitutes justification for a blew out by carriers. But if this doesn't qualify, I don't know what does. This is just thoroughly disgusting that Don Madsen put his name on it, and this is the woman he's going to go up against in negotiating our contract. She's going to eat his lunch. and I am thoroughly disgusted.
I think a lot of carriers are thoroughly disgusted with this thing.
Yeah, I'm biting my tongue from not using profanity because I am so pissed because this is so one-sided. It's ridiculous.
You aren't the only one. You aren't the only one. I know I was looking at comments on Facebook after I got done with my route today and seeing the comments on it, and it's disheartening to hear these carriers talking about how they just got an adjustment down, went back to 48, and now they're actually making up the money that they had lost working so hard under the rec system before the cut. And I talked with a carrier earlier who was on a 45K due to Rex evaluation that really should have been a 48K. Well, guess what? They just hit 48K and they got cut. And then this MOU comes out. So now all that work they did past their 45, unless they went over 56 for the week, they are getting paid for and they are getting remunerated for it. This is the problem with this 52-week system. It's a great tool for telling how we've been for the past 52 weeks, but the carriers are losing money hand over fist with Rex right now, especially when you have a president who thinks we've had it too good for too damn long. He thinks that rural carriers have been getting off way too early from their routes, so that carriers are now working off the clock in order to still get off 3 hours before their evaluation time. Carriers are going early and working off the clock to do it. But he doesn't care because all it's about is the numbers on the spreadsheet. And then he's talking with this lady who's our contract administrator. I think that this should have been between our director of labor relations and their director of labor. It should not have been our president with our contract negotiation person on the other side. This is a blatant attack on the craft from both the USPS and our president, because he's taking money out of our carriers' pockets, and I'm not going to stand for that.
Yeah, to sit back and put a name, a signature on a piece of paper that is literally taking money out of the pockets of your carriers, especially as we're coming into Christmas time, especially, table 2 carriers on lower steps. I mean, that hurts. We're struggling enough as it is. That, so it was what, a few pay periods. So why can't we just call it good and then make those carriers that drop down with this last minute mail survey, make them whole, and then just call it good for everybody else and then start the new evaluations over again? But to literally say, hey, guess what, you're going to have to pay us back, it's bullshit.
You know what the
Especially at
bullshit
Christmas
is?
time.
The bullshit is the hundreds of millions of dollars they saved over 6 years from the rural craft being overburdened on 48K routes versus the money they're going to be taking off of the people now. I mean, they're they might make a couple million off of this, being the time frame and everything, but it all depends on when they actually institute this and how quickly individual offices can respond to it. Case in point, Westchester has 18 roll routes. Right now, they've got one PTF going to convert to a regular. They have a sub who is going to go to a PTF in another office, and they have another regular who's interviewing for a supervisor job. So you're actively losing 3 carriers there. That leaves you 4 subs to fill the 3 positions, which means you'll have 1 sub for 18 routes. Now, after you get done cutting down the 13 overburdened routes, you're going to create at least 3 additional routes. You don't have enough vehicles for the 18 routes you have right now. Where are you going to magically materialize 4 vehicles? And on top of that, end up hiring. You haven't hired anybody new in over 8 months. Where are you going to come up with these people? Now, the kicker was that there was a stand-up talk this morning that because of the volume of packages, the Westchester office, which includes the city carriers and totals almost 100 carriers in all, are only going to get 2 hours of machine time on the parcel sorting machine, and the rest will be done manually because they don't have enough clerks to work the parcels. So the question was, okay, they're going to pay you wait time, Are they going to make you do second trips, which aren't second trips because of the fact that they fail to process the parcels in a timely fashion? They don't have enough clerks for sorting the mail, the flats, the bundled flats, everything that comes in. This place is going down the fucking toilet so damn fast. And then to get hit in the face with this, where your president basically just said, you're screwed and you're going to have to pay money back after they have gotten away with not paying us billions over the past 6 years. And I wish the people who voted for him at the last convention could hear this message. This is what you voted for. This is the type of representation that represents the craft. Mind you, his salary of $190,000 won't be affected. But the people on table 2 start signing up for food stamps now because it's going to be a lean-ass Christmas.
The biggest thing about this is we warned them. We told them this was going to happen. They were going to find another way to take more money from carriers. They were going to find a way to screw carriers over again. We told them that at National Convention in Reno, that if we don't stop the bleeding, carriers are going to pay dearly for it. They voted for him. They put him in the office. They were scared of change. Well, now that change is going to cost some carriers thousands of dollars, especially if they were the first to be adjusted in 2024. Thousands upon thousands of dollars is going to go back into USPS's pockets, and they'll praise it as cutting the losses that they're having. They're going to praise it as helping to get them closer to being fiscally responsible off the backs of the rural carriers. It is time for us as a craft to stand up, step up, be involved, get in there, get into your union meetings, get involved, run for delegate for your state convention, for your national convention. It is time for us to boot the people out that think we've had it too good for too long. Because I don't know about you, but if I keep losing money here, I can't afford to live. There are a lot of carriers right now that are so close to the brink of not being able to live that something like this would almost definitely kill them. I'm not being facetious here. The cost of living hasn't gone down.
Look what happened with the first mini mail survey and the first evaluations that came out and the 66% of the routes that dropped. Look what happened to some of our carriers. We lost some of our carriers that unfortunately are no longer with us because of the stress that caused them then. And now you're putting a second wave out there with this MOU telling these carriers when their routes went back up after being adjusted during this last mini mail survey, that now they're going to have to pay that back. When your representatives had already said at the various conferences and conventions and whatnot, oh yeah, they'll probably go back up during the mini mail survey because of the 52 weeks of data. You knew it then, and you couldn't put the 52-week hold on then. But oops, guess we'll have to do it now and then take everything out of the pockets of the carriers that we affected. That's bullshit. Now you're causing more hardships. Now you've got more carriers who have been on the line of whether they're going to stay or go that have probably just made up their minds of saying, fuck you, I'm gone, and walking out. So now you've got even more offices in crisis and short-staffed because people can't do it anymore. We are the ones with our boots on the ground. We are the ones that are out there in all the weather delivering God knows what comes in half those Amazon packages that we're lunking around. And this is how you thank us.
We understand that there is not very much we can do right now, but you can. We're doing everything we can right now to help grow the craft, educate the craft, and get the craft motivated. But it depends on you. You need to help us. You need to help educate your brothers and sisters in your office. Show them this. Tell them that this president has turned around and screwed carriers who were overburdened for a very, very, very long time. Call your union reps and tell them you don't like what Maston just did that they can pass it up to him. Spread the word, because we want National to know they screwed up on this. That their president, who's supposed to speak on the craft, did not speak for the craft on this MOU. He spoke for himself and making management happy, which seems to be his MO lately. Just make management happy so that way we don't have to fight over things. Well, I'm sorry, this craft needs to fight. This craft needs to step up, and it starts right here with the carriers that are listening to this podcast and the ones that are brought here because of this episode or any other episode we have. Because an educated craft is the bane of management. Don Maston is expecting our craft not to be educated, is expecting us not to know what's going on with this stuff. It's time to turn the page. It's time to remove the cancer at the top. He is a cancer who thinks rural carriers have had it too good for too long. He even said that when 66% of carriers lost pay during the mini mail survey the first time around, that carriers are finally getting paid for the work they're doing. He said that to the craft at a conference. 66% of carriers losing money are getting paid what they deserve. I don't know about you, but if you are the president of a union, you should be pissed that carriers are losing money. You should be pissed that carriers are going to get letters of demand from management for this MOU. I wouldn't personally assign this because this is hot garbage. I know I use that a lot, but it's a lot better than other words that could be used in this situation. But anybody out there who thinks they can help change this craft needs to step up. And if you feel like you're scared to do so or you're intimidated to do so, I got your back. So does Bill, so does Kristen.
Hey, James, here's something that just crossed my mind on this. RCAs covering these routes. If they're paid evaluation because maybe they're in an office where they're not getting over 40 hours, and are you taking away from RCAs too that we're covering these routes and PTFs that we're covering these routes?
Considering the MOU, I would not put it past management because they left that language open. It just says
if
that
they
it will
didn't
be
go over 40 hours and they were paid evaluation for the week, you're now taking money out of leave replacements pockets as well.
Mhm. It doesn't specify anything other than those rural routes, which receive
it
a
says routes.
retroactive.
It doesn't say regular rural carriers. It says rural routes. So now you're also taking money out of leave replacements. We have a shortage as it is as enough, and they are underpaid, and now you're going to take money out of their pockets as well. What if it said RCA that's been holding down that route for the last month or month and a half because the regular's out injured or sick or family emergency, or it's just a vacant route? So yeah, you're taking money out of designated 74's pockets as well. You're taking money out of PTF pockets, RCA pockets. That's complete, utter bullshit.
Yeah, and just in our comments in this live stream right now, which if you guys were a part of our Discord, you would know we were recording this live. Make sure you go head over to our group page and join the Discord server, and you can listen to us record live. It says, as an RCA, if I see a letter, I will be gone. I can't afford to pay back anything. Unfortunately, they'll still go after you for it, even if you leave. And that's true for even regular carriers. There are regular carriers that will not be able to pay this back, and then they're going to turn around and with that letter of demand, take it from your paycheck.
And now you're going to leave the carrier short.
And now the carrier is going to be short on their bills. They're going to not be able to pay their electric, their gas, their house payment, their car payment, whatever. And especially their car payment if they purchase a right-hand drive vehicle.
This is now they're going to lose Christmas the car for everybody. Because this is going to affect Christmas for everybody. Even if they don't get a letter of demand before the holidays, let's say it's after the holidays and it's after the first of the year, because we know how quickly they do those. Of course, in this case, they might do it right away. So now they already know that they're going to have to pay money back. So now they're having to put money aside that they normally would have spent for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
You're robbing from the families. You're taking people's livelihoods. For some, it may not be too much. For others, it could be devastating, just depending on where they're at financially,
Yep.
as well as table one, table two, and steps. Either way, it's going to hurt in one way or another.
Well, imagine the carriers that are sitting there deciding whether or not to stay in the union because they could use that money for their food budget, and now they're going to get hit with this. Oh, there's going to be people bailing on this too.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And here's the other kicker on this. The money they take out is post-tax, too.
Yes.
And I will say this. If 15% is, depending on the person, could be anywhere from $300 to $500 to $700, especially those that work their relief days every week because there aren't enough relief carriers.
Exactly.
And
So
that's
you're talking,
that's per pay period since the evaluations went back up.
and if you're talking 52 weeks of adjustments, that's 26 pay periods. Think about that. So we'll go with the $500 per pay period. That's $10,000. $10,000 out of carriers' pockets for 52 weeks.
I don't think that's what it's alluding to.
No,
That
it's
they're gonna go,
the ones that were cut
but
prior.
you're talking for future monies,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mhm.
they're not going to be collecting $10,000 off of somebody unless they've worked every drop day and Sunday parcels since the evaluations came out.
I was going with $500, which is about average per pay period, or the top per pay period for somebody who only works 5 days a week. 500 per pay period, and I went to 52 weeks because 10,000 sounds a lot better, easier to say than actually calculating out the true amount that it would actually be.
Well, it's going to be from when the routes went into effect, October 7th.
Right.
It's from October 7th back to when your route was cut.
Yes.
So if your route was cut before the April mini mail survey, you're going to be paying for all those weeks after the April mini mail survey when your route went up.
Yeah, this is. I think most of the cuts, though, James, were done between the spring and fall mini mail survey.
Yeah, so you're looking at maybe $5,000 per carrier, but that's
Yeah,
$5,000.
still a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
That is 5 paychecks for a table 2 step 1 carrier. 5 paychecks.
It is.
I-
It is backdated to October 19th, but still, that's the following pay period after October 7th. So either way, I mean, still, people, and the amount of money somebody could lose would be detrimental because you're still only going back a couple pay periods, but at the same time, that's not good for some people. I mean, that could be, a $700,000 loss for somebody that might be most of their pay, like a full paycheck.
Yeah. I've got a hot question for y'all. How involved was our director of labor relations, steward operations, and our new NROs? Were they? How involved were they with this decision?
No clue.
If they were.
No clue.
I will say this.
I already sent a text out to one of them, so
I will say this. I do know that a certain MRO was not knowledgeable in this, or they would have told me. But that is just an assumption on my part. I do not know for sure. I bet, like one of our chatters just said, I bet they were not even consulted because this was a conversation. It's signed by Don Maston and the contract negotiator for the USPS. So I'm guessing it was something that she threw on the table and said, if you sign this, I'll give you this. It's a possibility. But
James, what did we get out of this?
we won't know until they actually present us the contract. But like everybody says, Don's waiting on the city carriers to decide whether they're going to approve their tentative agreement or shoot it down.
Yeah, but out of this MOU, what did we get out of it?
He won't tell us.
Well, I haven't seen anything positive about this MOU yet. And the fact of the matter is that, for past 6 years, they couldn't cut my overburden route. How the hell are they going to effectively do this? And then turn around and retroactively turn around and ask the carrier to say, oh, by the way, you owe us this amount of money.
This is one of those times where we've been talking about it. We need it spread around, but it's time for the carriers on the street to step up. There's a build a fighting NALC out there trying to get people to fight for the NALC. It's time for us as a craft to stand up and fight for our rights, for what we deserve, and for us to be paid fairly, not some stupid MOU that cuts people money. I'm sick and tired of having to do these breakdowns and these midweek bonus episodes because somebody is too incompetent in their position to know carriers come first in his job. So I'm telling you what, as of right now, I'm putting my hat in the ring and I'm running against Don Maston
There you go, James.
because I am sick and tired of my brothers and sisters out there getting screwed over by a guy who thinks you've had it too good for too long, that carriers deserve the pay cuts that they get, while he gets to sit in our paid for home at national office and sign MOUs after deal after deal after deal that just cuts the pay of the craft over and over and over and over. I'm sick of losing money. Y'all are sick of losing money. It's time to go into national convention starting today and tell Maston it's our union, not his. It's time for him to get to stepping.
This is okay. So, 2 full pay periods is still not the greatest. Honestly, those 2 pay periods, make those carriers that went back down and that, the ones that you got to bring back up, that whether it was a new route created or the routes that had the territory added on them to build them up, make them whole. But why do we have to take the money back from the carriers? Because, oh, I guess our systems aren't that great. No, they're not. We saw this coming. You guys, the national board even said earlier this year, yeah, the routes will probably go back up. The routes will go back up. The routes will go back up because of the 52 weeks of data. So why couldn't they have just put the 52-week hold on those adjusted routes prior to the mini mail survey? Hello? I mean, this right here shows you again the difference between being reactive and proactive and planning ahead and reading what's going on. Enough's enough.
I find it hilarious that the most passion for the craft I saw out of Don Maston was him actually out there chanting, enough is enough, when we were in Reno, and him being a talking head on the media because it didn't affect postal management. He doesn't care about you when it affects postal management. He only cares about you when he can get out in front of the spotlight and put his name out there as the president of the NRLCA.
One in the listener chat there. What this does, of any of the routes that are being cut currently post the fall mini mail survey, those routes during the next mini mail survey, until they have 52 weeks of data, their route evaluation will stay what they're cut to. So if it's that overburden 47, 48K that was cut down to a 43 or a 45, if the circumstances were right, they will stay until they have a full 52 weeks of data, which is what it should have been to begin with. But let's not think about that and, get that under control before this happens.
What I'm really trying to figure out overall is the post office can track every single letter that goes to every single address. They can track every single package that goes to every single address. Why the hell doesn't the rec system have those numbers when you move these boxes to these other routes? Then the only thing you need to do an evaluation on that route literally is the footage, the distance between the boxes and park points and door deliveries. They know when we have mail that needs to go to a box to be scanned for an SPM. They know when a package has to be delivered. They know when we have a certified for that address. Why is that data not being used for recs? Why is it that we are so stuck in the Stone Ages with the union and management that we can't use the very AI data that we have? Our evaluations could be made simpler if they just used that data.
You mean like they did in the old mail counts? And when they
No, they
adjusted
can.
routes back in the day, they knew what each box factor was. But
Yeah,
but under Rex, they're doing it as an average for the whole route as a whole and not box by box.
but yet they know if you had a letter for that box or not in your DPS.
Yep.
Yep.
And they use the informed visibility, not the informed delivery, but the informed visibility for your box coverage factor. So, of course, they have those numbers. But, when you put bids out and you take the lowest bidder, this is what you get. Especially
So
when
people,
especially when this has been in the making for what, 12 years or more?
12 years. Yep.
12 years this has been in the making. This was initially supposed to go in effect in 2015 and didn't go in effect till 2023,
22.
2022, excuse me, initially started.
Yep.
So it took you that long and you couldn't have had these stupid little kinks worked out, and now you're going to cost the carriers. It's bullshit. And this is complete being reactive to the situation rather than being proactive and seeing that it's coming down the line. We all saw it. We've all talked about it months ago.
Well, like James elaborated on my speech for the national convention, and made the comment of that I was speaking that I didn't have experience. Well, James, I'd have enough experience not to sign this piece of shit document. And I also have enough experience, just from this podcast to know what's going on. So, it's not a matter of inexperience. It's just a different type of experience. And it's also, more importantly, a different perspective, a different set of eyes looking at a situation instead of being a career politician on the national board. Because I've had my feet on the ground for the last 26 years. He can't say that. He
I've
hasn't
had
been
my
there
feet
since
on the ground. Yeah,
2007.
I mean, my feet have been on the ground for the last 10 years. It. It shows you, and I hate to say this. No, I don't hate to say this anymore. I take that back. It shows you how out of touch people are when they haven't had their feet on the ground in so long.
Amen.
When you haven't experienced what we've experienced, when you haven't been the ones sit there going, all right, it's going live. Oh, nope, it's on hold again. What's going on? What's doing this? And then let's not even start with the individual offices and management and making sure that stuff is getting done like it's supposed to every month. Example, mapping. I know offices that haven't mapped since frickin' January or when they initially mapped, but somehow management's going in there and fiddling it, saying, yep, it's done, and the carriers haven't seen nothing since the initial mapping. But you know what? We're going to take money out of these carriers' pockets because, instead of coming down on management and putting people in those offices that can get that shit turned around and changed up. No, we're just going
I
to cut
know.
them and not think about, oh, look, well, I guess this actually happened, and now, well, yeah, you're going to have to pay us back.
Hang on. I know an office that didn't even do the initial mapping, nor have the carriers mapped since.
Yeah.
And
Kristen, you
go
talk
ahead.
about being out of touch. And all I can remember is Mike Swain, our former DR, who hadn't been on a route since 2001. And when he went back to the academy, he had to learn how to use a scanner.
Yeah.
The DR didn't know anything about scanning functions.
That's for any board member that's up there now.
Not any. There's a few that, there's a couple of them that.
Okay. The ones that have been up there forever,
Right.
Jeanette Dwyer, Don Maston, don't know how to do a scanner. They'll tell us that they know the scanners and they know the stuff that's in them, but they don't actually physically have the ability to use one. They'd have to go back to the academy and relearn all the stuff. Hell, they'd have to do the LLV, FFV, and Metris and NGDV training before they could even go out on their route. They probably have to go back to the academy and relearn everything because they've not touched a route in decades.
Yeah. Literally start from the bottom up, only as a regular, not an RCA.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I've always been for, and I'm still going to be for, I think anybody who is a full-time union employee should have to be back on their route at least for a full week once a year, at least.
And it not affect the RCA on the hold down.
Correct.
The RCA should get a week's vacation when that national board officer comes back to run the route. Give that RCA a vacation for a week.
You know, and that was always big. Well, they'll lose their designated 74 status, but you know what? After your week or whatever it is, that's just the bare minimum. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not one way or another. They need to be back on their route for at least a week out of the year. So the RCA goes after that week's up. You head back out. The RCA goes back on that route after 90 more days. Oh, guess what? It retroactivates to the day they went back on the route. What's so difficult about that? You're not taking away that designated 74 forever.
No.
So a little bit behind on sick leave, but all RCAs now are earning annual leave anyways.
And yes, they can easily override that too. And I'm sure if we were to put a resolution forward to make that happen, we could include that provision to do so.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we could come up with an MOU.
We could.
yeah, here is what you as a craft need to do today. In our current magazine that just came out, the November-December edition, there is the National Delegate Registration Form. Fill it out. Become a delegate to National Convention. Get yourself out there to your state. Get involved with your state stuff. Get your local. Go to your state convention. Things like that. Be seen. Be recognized. Because it's you who needs to be the voice of the craft at National Convention.
We are
All
the
too often.
governing body. We're the governing body. They're just elected representatives. We're the government body. We have the final say.
And while you're doing that, there is also the resolution form. You can use the resolution form. We've talked about the resolutions in an previous episode. You can make resolutions to change the constitution of the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. You could do resolutions to change your state constitution, and you can do resolutions of things you want to see in the contract. Use them. Get involved. You need to step up for yourself and your brothers and sisters of the craft because they and you are the reason the rural craft exists. The rural union exists. Step up, help us, help the craft because it's time we put somebody up at the top that listens to the craft instead of management. Someone who takes your concerns and uses them to get what the rural craft needs against management. All too often, you hear them being friendly. You heard Don be friendly with DeJoy at National Convention, and DeJoy joking about being friends with Maston on stage. Step up, help your craft, help your brothers and sisters. You are needed, you are wanted, and you can also be the voice for the voiceless like we are.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up tonight.
Yes, please.
So that's all. We're going to call it a night now. I think we've all gotten our frustrations out for now. But yeah, let's go read the MOU, print it off, hang a copy up on your rural board in your office. Just know, I mean, I get the 52-week stay on the newly adjusted routes. I completely understand that. That's fair when it comes to the mini mail survey and the 52-week data and all that stuff. What really just gets my goat is the fact that yeah, it may only be a couple pay periods, but you're still taking money out of the pocket of the carriers. Make the other side whole as needed. But why do we have to take the money out of the pockets of our carriers? The ones that have worked so hard and worked so long being overburdened and not compensated fairly for that. And then, okay, they got the relief only because of the data tracking to go back up. And now you're going to take money back out of their pockets. That to me is the hardest hit right there. I mean, it sucks. But I am going to close that out unless either one of you guys have anything else to say tonight.
I do.
Go for it.
this doesn't directly affect me since I've retired, but I may make a return. But the fact of the matter is that, when I read this, and I got to the line of accounts receivable invoices, and I'm sitting there going, "Are you fucking kidding me?" You're just going to find another way to rip us off. We have no transparency on Rex. We have no transparency on our national board. But this is just so sickening, and to think that everybody who's listening, if this doesn't motivate you to become a national delegate, to vote these people out of office, I don't know what will, besides the next contract. And when that comes up, God help the national board, because they will get lit up if we get anything remotely similar to the NALC contract tentative agreement. I'm saddened for all of you because of the fact that this is just, it's heart wrenching. It really is. They're doing nothing for the craft. And yet every year they vote these same individuals in, and it makes me sick because I know the effort that myself, James, and Kristen would put in if we were on the national board right now. And I know that this piece of paper would never cross my desk and get a signature on it. Not ever. Not until they got transparency done, not until they got the adjustments done, not until they got the overburden routes paid for. If you can go from a 40 to a 48 and you have hourly and minute adjustments for each step up, then you can create new steps to pay these people for the routes that are overburdened. And I'm not just talking about a couple hours. I'm talking people who are up in the 60s and 70s on their overburdened routes. And this just makes me sick, and I'm sad for every rural carrier that has to tolerate this kind of shit. I'm praying for y'all. It's dark out now. The weather's coming in, getting cooler. Snow will be coming along soon. Ice, sleet, and everything else. And your job just gets more dangerous during these winter months. And I pray for all of you to be safe and get home to your loved ones, because you are the most important delivery of the day. And if you're going to rip me off, Don, get it right. Okay? God bless you all, and we'll see you on Sunday.
You got anything else, James?
Yes, I am running for president now, and I am still going to be here for every single one of you that listens to this channel, because you guys are the number one people in this craft. Every single one of you is my brother and sister, and it is time for us to step up and take our craft back. People at the top need to understand that their one and only job is to listen to this craft on the ground, listen to what's going on with them, and then their second job is to ensure that we don't lose money. In this day and age, people cannot afford to lose money. But we have seen it time and time again that they keep taking and taking and taking. Well, it's time for this craft to step up and take their positions from them, because this craft is number one. And when we stand together, united as one craft, one body, we show them we're all in this together.
All right, guys. That's a wrap for tonight, and we'll be back Sunday night.